Good morning, everyone. Vloggy Poncho here. Today is Friday, February 8th. I'm weighing at 181 pounds. And I'm still on page 33 of Atlas Shrugged, which I'll remind you has about 1,000 pages in it, so a lot longer to go there. And I didn't know what to talk about for this episode, but I found something in Atlas Shrugged that I thought it really stood out to me. When I read this little passage that I want to read to you guys for the first time, like 2 days ago, I was like, that's interesting. It sounds like something that you would see as an example on like the SAT or some like language composition test where they expect you to read a passage and then answer questions about the metaphor or whatever that's in it. So just tell me what you think about this in the comments. He did not know why he suddenly thought of the oak tree. Nothing had recalled it, but he thought of it, and of his childhood summers on the Taggart estate. He had spent most of his childhood with the Taggart children, and now he worked for them, as his father and grandfather had worked for their father and grandfather. The great oak tree had stood on a hill over the Hudson, in a lonely spot on the Taggart estate. Eddie Willers, aged 7, liked to come and look at the tree. It had stood there for hundreds of years, and he thought it would always stand there. Its roots clutched the hill like a fist with fingers sunk into the soil, and he thought that if a giant were to seize it by the top, he would not be able to uproot it, but would swing the hill and the whole of the earth with it, like a ball at the end of a string. He felt safe in the oak tree's presence. It was a thing that nothing could change or threaten. It was his greatest symbol of strength. One night, lightning struck the oak tree. Eddie saw it the next morning. It lay broken in half, and he looked into its trunk as into the mouth of a black tunnel. The trunk was only an empty shell. Its heart had rotted away long ago. There was nothing inside, just a thin gray dust that was being dispersed by the whim of the faintest wind. The living power had gone, and the shape it left had not been able to stand without it. Years later, he heard it said that children should be protected from shock, from their first knowledge of death, pain, or fear. But these had never scarred him. His shock came when he stood very quietly, looking into the black hole of the trunk. It was an immense betrayal, the more terrible because he could not grasp what it was that had been betrayed. It was not himself, he knew, nor his trust. It was something else. He stood there for a while, making no sound. Then he walked back to the house. He never spoke about it to anyone, then or since. Interesting. I'm not made it far enough in Atlas Shrugged to know what that's actually meant to be a metaphor for, but I can only assume that it's him talking about his society, and at some point he's going to realize that his society's been dead for a long time and it's hollow inside. But, that's just speculation. I don't know, for me, it strikes something very serious to me, and it makes me think of an event that occurred to me recently. Not really a singular event, but more of a development in my life. I don't know if this is something that you've ever really thought about, but someday you're going to die. And it's not something that we really like to think about. It's not something that we try to dwell on. And in fact, we have entire social structures designed to make it easier for us. There's a reason that it's become an industry, you know, the undertakers and the funeral business. It's not something that people really want to have to do themselves. And so the whole idea is to make it as streamlined as possible so we don't have to think about it. But before even death comes to strike us, for most people, you don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it unless you've gotten to old age, at which point it's sort of forced upon you. So I don't think that most people my age or younger have really even accepted the fact that they're mortal. And it gives me an interesting insight into the differences between children and adults. And I think that one of the biggest differences between being a child and being an adult is understanding and accepting the fact that someday you won't be here anymore. And it's something that, when it first occurred to me, really depressed me. But now it's sort of just part of me. I understand it. And it is a downer to think about. That's why we don't dwell on it. But it's not something that you can afford to ignore your entire life. It's living in that way it's ignorance. And it's that sort of naivety that we have to escape in order to grow up. So that was what it was like for me. The first time I really thought and understood and realized that I was going to die. It felt like I was betrayed, but not by anyone or even by the world. That's just the nature of things. And it's something that I could talk about for a long time, but I think it's more something that people should contemplate on their own. But for me, that the metaphor works wonderfully with the tree. And when the author says, it seems as though even if a giant came along to uproot the tree, he'd be unable to, and it would swing the whole earth with it, as it's so strongly connected. And that's what a lot of youth think about their mortality, is that you don't feel invincible in the sense that you feel immune to being hurt, but you feel invincible in the sense that you can't even conceive of the notion of dying. It's like if someone were to try and come and uproot you from your life, they would swing the whole earth with you because you'd be so strongly connected to it. So I think it makes a clear metaphor there, at least for me. I may be reading too much into this, but I think it fits. And this tempts me to move into another topic about how people deal with this knowledge and how people will rationalize it away. And in effect, a lot of adults fail to ever come to terms with this fact. And it's in a number of ways that I'd like to discuss in another episode. So I'll leave it at that for today. I'm going to continue reading Atlas Shrugged, but my friends were right. I'm definitely enjoying the book, even if I don't have a whole lot of time to dig into it. And it's very well written. So I'm looking forward to getting through it and being able to discuss it with people who I know have read it. Hope you're not too bummed out. Have a good Friday. End of the work week. Woo! Seems a little smaller now. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow morning.